So, people are still joining us, but that's fine. I am going to go probably talking for about a half hour to an hour today, depending on the number of questions we get. We do this webinar every Thursday, so feel free to join in again or encourage team members of yours who would have administrative access to the system to sign up maybe on a subsequent week if they couldn't attend today. We are also recording most of these sessions, so if needs be, we can send you over a copy of the recording if you just think today's session was so fabulous, you must have it again and play it on your way to and from work. So, just going to bring over Function Point. Just opened it up in Firefox today. The system will work in any browser, as long as that browser is up to date. So for IE, for example, which people do use, just make sure that your version of Internet Explorer is very up to date. I find the system works great in Firefox, Chrome, Safari, works fabulously in all of those. So for today's webinar, you certainly can type questions into the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll either answer those at the end of the session, or you may see a colleague of mine respond to you during the session. We'll just see what kind of time we have and what kind of questions we get. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to log into the system. For today's webinar, I'm just going to use my test system. And here we are on my dashboard. Your dashboard may look a little different. You'll probably have your own banner branding up here, and you may have gone to the step already of changing your own dashboard look and feel, which you certainly can do. Just from the top nav bar, you can hover over the word dashboard and you can choose customize dashboards, and that'll give you the option to change what tiles are displaying here. This is what we call the classic view, which a lot of you probably will have. If you're new users, where you've got your timesheets window, your jobs pane, your tasks and to-dos, and your pin notes or internal message board over here to the far right. So the section of the system I'm going to spend most of our time on today is way over here to the right, called admin. Now, not all of your users will have access to this area of the system. That's probably a good thing, because this area of the system does usually contain quite a bit of confidential information. Depends on what you put in, obviously, but it can include stuff to do with salaries, rates that you may not want to share with all of your team members. Getting over to this area of the system, very straightforward. You can just hover over the word admin and then choose from amongst the various drop-down menus. But what I find a little easier is just to click the word admin itself. And that brings up all the same data from this drop-down menu just onto one screen. I find that a little easier to deal with today. So we're going to go through most of this today. We're not going to go through much of this in any great detail, just because there is a lot here, and because a lot of this information that does need to be covered in detail will be covered in a one-on-one session with your trainer. We can also offer you a lot of the information I'm giving you today through documents in our help section. Really encourage everyone, when they do log into the system, to navigate over to help just by hovering over the word help, choosing training. The training area is divided into 4 main sections. I'll just make this a little bigger. We've got the training process overview. Great area for new users to come in and get an idea of what their deployment is going to look like with FP, what meeting prerequisites are, and what you can expect as far as the content of meetings goes with your trainer. FP Prime users. These are people who are system administrators, and that is the area of the system we are going to be looking at today. Great, lots and lots and lots of great documentation back here, including training videos. The rollout to team section is a great area to direct your team members to, those who are not going to have admin access but who are going to be users of the system. And then last but not least, we've got the FP Accountant section. If you have signed up to use FP Accountant, which is an additional tool that can integrate your system with QuickBooks, please do read this section for sure. Navigating back just over to my test system here, and let's get going. So we're going to start at the top here with good old system setup. And the first item on our list, system preferences. Clicking into system preferences brings up several tabs. You're welcome to explore these. I'm just going to spend a little time on the ones that I see most often visited and most often changed. So first tab we've landed on here is called System. And an area I like to point out is this one here, called the next job slash estimate number. Your system, if it's brand spanking new, you'll probably see the number 1000 here. My system, being ancient and tired, is that number, a number much higher than that. You can control, though, if you would like to change that number. We do recommend that you make it a 4-digit number at least. The system does seem to prefer having 4 digits or more, so you could certainly change what the next job or estimate number is going to be. So in my case, I could make it 4000 or 4002, whatever you'd like it to be. The other item I see changed regularly is this one down here called session duration. This is just referring to the amount of time that will go by without you touching your keyboard and mouse before the system's going to kick you out of the system. Something to keep in mind, if you may want to make this number smaller, if you're in an environment where people are sharing machines or looking over each other's shoulders, and some people will have more permissions than others. Or you may want to make it a bigger number if you don't want people to get logged out of the system without them manually selecting that. Something to keep in mind as far as session duration times go is that if you are in the midst of something, if you are in the middle of building out a project or estimate or expense, and you haven't saved your changes and you go home for the night, the system will not save those changes for you. Function Point will not be your friend in that sense, that it will not auto save changes for you before it ends your session. So something to keep in mind. As with most areas of the system, if you do make any changes, you're going to want to look out for a button that called Submit. That'll just be a way to save any changes you make. So I'm just going to hit Submit here because I did make some changes. Okay, and I've gotten a little warning message there, which is totally fine. So we'll just move on. Next tab I'm going to look at here is called Branding. This is referring to areas in the system that have your image and your brand associated to them. And so in Function Point itself, that's the top navigation banner area here. You can change this. Your system probably will have come with something resembling your logo up there, done by our account managers, but you can certainly change this as often as you like to whatever you'd like. We've given you some information here about what the size of that image should be and a spot to upload it. Below there, if you are using our client portal, which is a great little add-on tool, you may choose to mimic that banner across to the client portal side of things. And you've even got the options to put in some different background colors for that area of the system. Yeah. Okay, just going to move over to the next tab here called Replace. This one I see used quite often. You'll notice in Function Point that there's a lot of terminology, especially up here in the main nav bar. But it may not be the terminology that you use. Perhaps projects doesn't really ring a bell for you guys and you think campaign is really the way to go. We do give you the option to change a lot of the terms in the system just here. All the words you see in the yellow boxes can be changed. So you could easily change project to campaign and all the other iterations of projects through the system. Hit submit when you're done. This area, I do notice, does take a couple of minutes, maybe not even that long, but it's not an instant change. You may have to refresh your screen a couple of times to see the changes, but they will come through. So feel free to make any adjustments there that you like. Last but not least on our list here, we have login. This is another area I quite like because it does give you some pretty cool options. By default, when your staff are added into the system, they will get a username and password that will follow the convention of username being first name space last name, not case sensitive, and a password of their first initial last name. You do have the option to force your staff to change their password upon their first login, and you can even get extra fun and say, well, when I force them to change that password, if you force them to change their passwords, that those passwords have to be of a certain length, have a certain number of numbers, symbols, letters, etc. in them. Below that, we've got an area I really recommend you navigate to in your own system and bookmark. This will be your custom login for your organization's version of Function Point. You can see I'm in Emma Test because that's the system we're in. This is something that's worth bookmarking, worth sharing with your staff when you're ready for them to start logging in, because it'll take them to the Function Point login page, but it will spare them having to type in the company name. They'll just need to put in their usernames and passwords. So something worth bookmarking, and that's just found here on the login tab. Excellent. I'm just going to pop back to the word admin just to go a little further down our list. So we were starting in system setup. That was a little bit about system preferences. We're going to move on to talk a bit about office preferences. Not much to show you here, but I do like to point out when you choose office preferences, there's going to be a nice little area here that says file path. And this is where you'll want to add your black and white and or your color logos. Those will appear on any client-facing printout. So any estimate you print up for the client to sign off on, any invoice you send off to the client, those logos will appear. So you'll definitely want to make sure you upload those. You'll just hit browse in either or both spots to navigate to a file on your own machine. The other item here, accounting package, this probably will be pre-selected for you. We're looking for you to select what your accounting system is. If you are, however, using Function Point Accountant, I really wouldn't worry about this area. We'll make sure that things are set up for you. And all I'd encourage you to do, again, if you're Function Point Accountant users, is to come to the help section and really take a solid look at the Function Point Accountant integration documents. Excellent. Just going to hit admin again to go back to our list. Tax groups. Not going to get too into that. Just want to point out this is where they live. You can certainly have as many of the taxes you may have to apply to the work you do or the expenses you charge back to your clients in here. We do have some great documents, excuse me, on how to set up your taxes, and it's something your trainer can certainly talk to you about in more detail. I encourage you, though, if you'd like to set up your taxes, to navigate over to the help section again. You can put in a search parameter for taxes, and you're looking for this document, either tax groups and individual taxes, setting up tax groups and individual taxes. We've got a couple of them here, even a quiz that involves taxes to make sure that you know what you're doing. So take a look at that. We've got some step-by-step documents on how to set those taxes up. List maintenance looks incredibly boring from our perspective here, but actually is quite a powerful area of the system. Just going to navigate away from here for a moment to show you a little bit about where list maintenance has its influence in the system. So I'm just going to come back to my dashboard. Dashboard is like hitting the home page. It'll always bring you back to that screen we landed on my classic view here. And let's say I'm in Function Point and we've landed a new client, which is great news, and I need to make sure I get them into my Function Point system. So I'm going to come to the Companies module. I'm adding a company to the system, and I can start putting their data in. Something I'll point out is that you'll probably notice through Function Point that there will be areas that are yellow fields and areas that are white fields. Wherever you see yellow fields, that does make it a required field. So just keep that in mind. The white fields are optional. So sticking with my theme from Tuesday's call, my Harry Potter theme, we're going to go with Hogwarts School as my company name. I'm using my tab key to navigate to the next field. That has pre-populated a code for me. The company code, really nothing to worry about. It's just going to show up where there isn't enough screen real estate to show the full company name. I could put in any address information I have, any province information, etc. Now I've gotten to the country field. And while Hogwarts School is in the United Kingdom, and I don't have the United Kingdom here as an option, what is a girl to do? I'm also coming over to the industry type, and I was really hoping I had, School of Magic here as an industry type, and I don't have that either. I'm a little up the creek because those fields aren't there for me to pick from. And this is where list maintenance really comes into play. So if we go back to the list maintenance area in our admin menu, under the table name, first thing I want to change is in the country menu. So here are all the items that appeared in the country drop-down menu, aside from Germany, which I made inactive. And I could just add the UK, adding a new item, hitting submit to save the change. Perfect. It's marked as active. I can choose to mark items as default. We can see we've got a few columns here, so we can change the order of the items in the drop-down menu. If one should be default, if one should be deleted entirely because I never use it, and if they are active, so if they're going to appear when I'm using the system. Happy with my changes, I hit submit. Let's say again I'm adding that new company to the system, and there in my drop-down menu I have the UK now. Same for industry type and any other drop-down menu you see that has to do with anything other than your staff members. There are drop-down menus in the system that are going to populate directly from who your staff list is. So that is changed in another way. But any drop-down menu you see with just normal data, for lack of a better word, you can change. So again, going back to the admin menu, choosing list maintenance, looking at industry type was the menu I wanted to examine. And again, I can choose to remove things, make things inactive, whatever I'd like to do to change things. And I could even add School of Magic, get that in the list. Extra bells and whistles like order all these things alphabetically. Submit that. It's changed the order to alphabetical for me. And again, just pretending I'm adding a company into the system. Now my industry type menu is in alphabetical order, and there's School of Magic there for me. So it's an area I see clients come back to quite often. You will encounter drop-down menus throughout the system, not just here at companies. So keep in mind that you do have control over what those drop-down menus show, the order in which they show them, etc. Popping back to my admin list, making good progress through system setup. Custom fields, again, doesn't look very interesting here from the back end of the system, but just want to advise you that at the company and contact level, you can add as many additional new different fields that you would like. So in the company example again, when we're adding a company, you will see that you've got all number of fields you can fill in. You'll have everything in your default system right up to industry type. Then you can see here in my test system, I've added a few more. So in this box here are the additional fields I've added because I want to capture number of staff, if they've got a Facebook page, the quality of the reference, which I've turned into a drop-down menu, and if they have a Twitter address. So I can do this at the company level, again, as many more fields as I would like, and I could do this at the contact level as well. So if we were adding a new contact, got a nice big blank space, clean slate that we could add as many more fields here as needed. Popping back to our admin menu, last but not least here we have the work calendar. This may not be an area that everyone will use, but it's definitely an area I like to point out. The way I find it makes the most sense is to think of everything above the line as being pertaining to your organization. So here in my pretend system, my function point is the company or the office, and everything to do with my office is here. So these are the hours my office is open. These are the days my office is closed. I could easily add in another holiday here. Let's say March. I can put in partial match. Don't have to spell it all out. The system will assume I mean this year. So I could say March 15th to March 17th, closed for, spring break. Could add that holiday, and that's an office-wide holiday. Below the line is everything to do with my individual staff members. So let's say Mike here. We're now looking at Mike's information. Mike is also working Monday to Friday, but maybe Mike, takes Wednesdays off and then works an extra long day on Fridays. Maybe Mike has a holiday coming up. Maybe he's off from March 1st. Oh, pardon me. March 1st to March 15th. Maybe he's on a holiday. And now I'm adding a staff holiday as opposed to a office-wide holiday. So this works really well for staff members you may have that do flex schedules. They don't work Mondays, they work extra long Tuesdays, etc. So this is where you would set those hours for your individual team members and their individual holidays. Now, where this all feeds into is in your main navigation bar under the tasks menu. It's called the resources link, and it's a nice visual of how busy people are. So up in the top, you're looking by virtue of your office. You can be looking by virtue of actuals hours or actual tasks for live jobs or forecasted work for potential work. You can look within a date set. You can further look by role or staff group if you would like, or you can just see everybody And so below we can see all our team members. What we're seeing is that I've got 2 staff members, or 3 staff members, I should say, 4 staff members, all noted to be project account executives. So the first line, account executive, is showing their cumulative hours. And then below that, we're seeing how busy people are as individuals. What's quite nifty in this area, so we can see we've got this staff member named Owen. He has 6 hours allocated to him for the day. I can click into that, see exactly what's comprising those 6 hours, see additional details, and if he had called in sick today, I could reassign that on the fly to another member of the team who's maybe not so busy. Now again, this isn't an area that everyone might use, but something I do like to point out to our new users as an area they may enjoy viewing to just get a high level look at feel and on how busy people are. So we can now see that Owen has less hours on his day because I did move a task away from him. People will show in green if they've got a task that's doable and reasonable within that time frame. Things start to show as red when they are way over allocated and when things start to pile up, when tasks that have been assigned to them aren't getting marked as completed. I won't spend too much more time on this. It may not be an area for everybody, but just like to point it out again, it lives up under the tasks menu, the resources link, and the data it's pulling is a combination of assigned tasks to staff and this information here on the work calendar as far as availability of staff goes. Let's just pop back to our admin menu. So we've gotten through system setup really quickly. Next, we've got here an area called Manage Services and Expenses. Your base system will have come with just sort of a generic set of what we refer to as services and expenses. And those services and expenses are divided into 3 types. So internal or hourly services, these are items that you would have your team tracking time to, so perhaps design or research or copywriting. Internal expenses, so dollar value per unit sold. Perhaps you sell burned CDs back to your staff or color copies or certain proofs. We think of this as things that you sort of have in your storeroom that you're selling back for a dollar value to your clients. And then third, we have external expenses. So these are areas or items where you're using probably a third party provider like a printer, talent, graphic designer, maybe a freelancer. So you are paying this person and charging your client, most likely charging your client back a percentage markup for those services. So your system, again, will have come with some base versions of each of these. And those base versions of each of those will have been organized into what we refer to as service groups. The way I find it easiest to examine what you've got in your base system and think about what you might need to change is to pretend you're adding an estimate. That's a very common workflow in the system. Adding an estimate, let's just click Add Estimate. We're on our blank estimate add and edit page. Again, I like to use the top left corner as just a little clue and hint as to where I'm at. We're not going to worry about this area for now. We're just going to look over here in the service groups and services area. The gold level are your service groups, and drilling into any of them, the area below are the individual services. So we can see the blue line is indicating these are external expenses, so items I'm probably charging back to my client for a percentage markup. I've got printing, a billboard print, and a brochure print under there. Internal expenses, again, the blue line indicating that's what they are. So these are items that I probably have on hand that I charge back to my client for a dollar value. Got scans, photography, etc. And then billable time, noted as internal services or hourly services, things I would have my team tracking time to, so design, copywriting, etc. So I really encourage you all, as a bit of homework, if you haven't done so already, to into your system, choose estimates, add estimate, just get to this page where you can see these service groups and services, drill into each of them, and have a think about, well, does this include everything I need to include? Does it exclude things that I don't offer or include things that I don't offer to my clients? And then we can certainly assist you in making adjustments. But do know that everything you do see here can certainly be changed, and that is all handled back in the admin area under the management of services and expenses. Again, it's an area we do have some great write-ups on. on how to add or remove items from here. So please do take a search in the help section under training if you'd like to go ahead and do that yourself. Next along the list here, we have rate and staff management. Again, not an area I'm going to spend a ton of time in just because it is something that you'll need to do some pretty serious thinking about and probably get stuck into more in a one-on-one session with your trainer. I would ask though that again, as a bit of homework, I'm just going to come back to the community help section, or sorry, the training section. I'm going to choose prime area and just point out where we're sort of at in here to point out really specifically a document I'd recommend you guys read again as a little bit of homework. So welcome to Function Point. Pretty self-explanatory what's there. Logging in and navigation is the next section along, just about how to get into the system, a little bit about how to change your dashboard if you like, filtering information if you'd like. The workbook, we talked about that in our Tuesday webinar. And now we're on to rates and taxes. So what we've tried to do is order these chapters in a way that makes sense for what you should do before you sort of get on to the next step. Rates and taxes, top item, what rate structure is best for you? Really recommend that everybody takes a look at this document. We've tried to make it pretty straightforward. We suggest, or there are three ways in which, three options by which you can organize and bill and do your rates in Function Point. We've tried to explain them here with some examples, some visuals. Please take a look at this, figure out what way is best for you, and then proceed to the associated document for that. Having that determined will really help you move forward in the system. So it's a pretty important step. We welcome your feedback, questions, concerns about that, but really recommend you read that document and happy to send a link out as needed. So back in our admin section, rate and staff management, I will just say that you can have as many rate cards or categories as you like. So if you have a standard rate you use and then you have a discount rate and a rush rate, that'll work very well. You can also bill out by role or bill out by virtue of the person who will be doing the work. So know that all those options are there. It's just a matter of you deciding which one is best for you, and then we can assist you in getting that set up. The last item here, though, I will spend a few more minutes on, and that's all to do with managing your staff and their rates and permissions. And this is an area similar to list maintenance in that I see a lot of people spend a lot of time back here. So just clicking on that, first thing it's going to do is bring up our staff list. And even just this staff list can be a great little resource. We can see that in my test system, I've got quite a few staff members. And going across the columns, I'll just explain a little bit here. So groups, optional section or optional way in which you can further categorize your staff members, not required, just a nice way to literally group people together. Role is great. Role is just, again, a way to organize your team members by virtue of their role. Hire date, not a bad information to add in if you would like to. They're associated to this particular office. How they track time. There are two ways in which staff can track time, and people can determine for themselves which they would prefer, and then yourself or other system administrators can set that for them. The two time tracking methods are by duration and by a start and stop clock. So let people have a think about that. Maybe let them try each, see what they prefer. Duration's my preference, but hey, that's me. And we can certainly direct you to some training videos about how time is tracked if people want a little more information before deciding. Clock, AM, PM, or a 24-hour clock, depending again on people's individual preferences. And last login, I really like the last login just because as you guys are rolling this out, you may have some pushback from staff going, wait, I don't want to learn a new system, and this is too daunting, and it's going to be too much to change. But we really, we want you to be encouraging your staff to use it, and we really want people in there using it. And this is just a great way in which you can see, hey, did people log in today? When was the last time they logged in? Did someone tell me they logged in yesterday, but they really haven't logged in for a week? So it's a great place to just really quickly see if people have been coming into the system or not. Rate, easy, quick way to get to individual rates if you are using rates in that way. Last, we here have status to see if people are active or inactive. And then last but not second last, here we have permissions. Permissions are really, really robust, to use that cool word, in Function Point. You can get very, very specific about what people can and can't do or see in the system. So let's just choose David's permission area here by example. A recent change to the system, one that I'm pretty happy about, if it would just take me there. There we go. We're on our Manage Staff Permissions page now. Is that all are active, all the stuff in here that's still working and active does have an explanation as to what it does. So we've tried to really clear this area up. It used to be all blank, and you just really had to sort of make a best guess sometimes. So we've cleared all this up, given further explanation for each of the items. If you do see an item that's blank, it just means it's on its way out. It's probably some old code. The line is still there and it will be disappearing. Your system will come with some preloaded permission sets. These are probably permissions that you would have chosen when and if you had us do your staff import. If you didn't have us do your staff import, and if you're just putting people in manually, feel free to pick from among the preloaded sets. And if you're wondering what those preloaded set means, just going to get rid of a couple of these. Again, consult your training area, consult your prime users area because that's what you guys are. And under workbook, we've got the permission settings explained here. Again, any of these documents that you need to be reminded of how to get to them, please let us know. But they are all here, and a quick search should give you what you need as well. So those are the 4 preloaded permission sets. You're welcome to give people those preloaded sets and then add or take away. You can create your own sets. Again, we've got great documents on how to do that, but did want to point out just where their permission area lives. And again, like most areas of Function Point, if you do make changes, you're just going to want to look for a submit button to make sure those changes are saved. Popping back to the admin menu. So rate and staff management, we got through that. Integrate accounting is next on our list here. For those of you, again, that have signed up to use Function Point Accountant, please don't worry about this and please just read. Again, let's just remind you where it is. Under the training menu, please read the Function Point Accountant's QuickBook integration step-by-step instructions document. For those of you who aren't using Function Point Accountant, that's totally fine. You'll still be more than capable and able to create invoices in the system. But in order to successfully create invoices in the system, you will need to first set up your chart of accounts and then assign those accounts. So set up your chart of accounts, and I'd recommend, again, you don't do this really until you've sorted out your services and expenses, sorted out the way in which you're going to charge and use rates in the system, and then natural progression to come to the integration of accounting. Setting up chart of accounts, very straightforward though. You just type in the name of the account, choose the account type, hit submit, create as many of these as you'd like. We see clients get really detailed here with a lot of information. Then we see clients just have fee income, just one. That's all you really need is one in order to be able to invoice. Once you have set up your chart of accounts, you'll want to assign those accounts to all the items you offer. And you'll want to do that across any or all of the rates you offer. If you just have one rate, it'll be pretty straightforward. My test system here has quite a few more. So across all the rates that you offer, you'd want to make sure there weren't any blanks because that's where you'd get hung up on trying to invoice. Again, we have some great documents on how to do this, and your trainer or support team, we're here to help make this as painless a process as possible. Moving on down to features. Start at the bottom this time. Salesforce integration. Again, we've got a document on how to do this. You certainly can integrate with Salesforce. If you are using Salesforce, you can bring over quite a bit of information from Salesforce to Function Point. Saves you a bit of time. Bulk email templates. You can use Function Point as your bulk email service provider. But I will say that ours is not the most powerful bulk email service provider out there. Ours will it won't give you the metrics that I know a lot of other systems out there will provide. So metrics such as how many people open the email, did it bounce at all, did they open it, did it go straight to the trash, etc. Ours won't give you that. So be encouraged to use it. We do have directions on how to go about setting that up. But again, just keep in mind that you're not going to get some of the same metrics that you might from MailChimp or other providers out there. Top of the list, brief types. This will be especially interesting to those of you who are using the client portal, but not necessarily exclusively so. I know a lot of our clients work with and use creative briefs, and this is where you could build out those. You can have as many brief types in the system as you like. And something I've noticed clients doing lately, which is a really effective tool, is that they're creating a brief for the beginning of the project, sort of figure out the scope of the work, figure out their creative requirements of the work. Then they're having a brief to check in with the client midway through the project that includes different questions and different information they're seeking. And then they're having a brief created for the end of the project, sort of a how did we do brief. And all of those can be built, they can all be filled in by the client through the portal, or briefs can be used internally, filled out within Function Point by a member of the team while they're on a call with a client or following up a conversation with the client, and just stored within the system. So it's a great way to keep all the data you may have for from back and forth and from meetings with clients about what their requirements might be within the system. Just click on this briefly just to show you a little bit about the interface. When I click on brief types, it's going to bring up all the briefs I have in the system. I have quite a few because, again, this is my test system where all kinds of stuff happens. Your system, I believe it will come with 4 briefs by default that you're welcome to review, use as a source of inspiration for your own, adjust and make more of your own. So feel free to take a look through those. What I find the easiest thing to do is just to pick a brief. So I'm just going to pick my brochure brief. Takes you onto the brief type add edit page. You can see you can give it a different name. You can put in any description. I'm not going to worry too much about this data here. We've got some good documents on it. And if you are portal users, we will go into this more specifically. You just want to hit the arrow key to get into the meat of the brief itself. I find this to be easier to read the more familiar I've gotten with it. But if you're finding this a little overwhelming information wise, you just want to see what the dang thing's going to look like, be encouraged to use this view form button. Ta-da, there we go. And now we're getting an idea of what our client would see if they're seeing this through the portal, and what we would see if we were adding this brief from the briefs module in more the client interface, day-to-day user interface side of things, I should say. You can get an idea here that there's different question types. You can make questions or answers required, I should say. This would be like a text area, radio buttons, single select radio buttons, multi-select checkboxes. You can also build in drop-down menus. There's all sorts of question and answer types you can have here. So feel free to explore that, uh, experiment with it, and let us know how we can help. Popping back to the admin menu again, that was a bit about features. And our final item here we have is pertaining to alerts. So the Function Point system can reach out to you via the system itself. So with an in-system alert that you would see when you log in. Alerts that you get within the system can be snoozed, dismissed, clicked on to get to the specific details of whatever the alert is pertaining to. And or you can get a notification via email. So we recommend you don't overwhelm or inundate your staff members with alerts, but it's not a bad idea to set up, especially new users, to get alerts for things like a task has been given to them, a task has been marked as completed, maybe a comment has been made on the task because something has changed. When you drill into the alerts area, you're going to see quite a lot of data. It looks semi-similar to the permissions area in that you've got a main list of things that when you click on the little arrowhead, you're going to see much more information. So there are items here that I wouldn't advise people to take on as an alert. When a new contact is added to the system, I don't really have a scenario in my mind as to why someone would necessarily need to be alerted to that, but entirely up to you. What you're looking to do in this section, though, is to basically follow the numbers. So you can choose an alert list. There are some pre-made sets. You won't have the ever popular MS alerts, but you will have some pre-made sets in here for you that you could just pick from. or you can choose to create a new set entirely. Once you've picked to create new, for example, you would give it a name. You would select what should be included. You can then choose who of your staff members, either by virtue of their group or by individual name, should be receiving that alert set, and then you just hit submit. The nice thing about doing this from the admin area is that you can choose more than one person at once. So you can choose a set. Perhaps you've got a studio set. It's all pre-built. And you can then say, well, that studio set should go to a few specific people. So be encouraged to build out sets. I really usually advise that people relate most of their alerts to tasks. Tasks are a great way to get people active in the system. It's a call to action for people to start working on something. Excuse me, hiccup. And so alerting people to those tasks can be a great way, especially when they're new users, perhaps having them get an email reminding them to check the system, be using the system, and checking those tasks. Again, you don't want to inundate people with an alert for every time any task is added to the system. So especially in the tasks area, look for these little additional ways to narrow it down to say, yeah, send me an alert and send me an email, but only if the task is assigned to me. I don't need to get an alert and an email every time a task gets created. Having someone get an in progress alert is not a bad idea either. With time tracking in the system, the way in which it's done, tasks begin in an assigned process or assigned status. Moving them to a status of in progress is a way to acknowledge. It's a way that enables you to begin time tracking to that task, and it's a great way for the person who assigned that task to know that you've picked it up and you've begun running with it. Same for marking a task as completed. Again, narrowing it down to say, hey, only if I've assigned that out do I want to know if it's completed. It's keeping me in the loop as to my staff members getting the work done. Maybe get some alerts about that. So take a look at what's in the preloaded sets. Feel free to create your own. Just assign them to as many people as you see fitting, and then be sure to save your changes. Again, let us know if there are questions about this. And also, again, we do have some great write-ups on this over in the help and training section, specifically the training area for FP primes. So I'm just going to click the admin button again. I've got a few questions that I've written down that I notice come up quite a bit in regards to this area of the system. It looks like the questions that have been coming in during the session have been answered, so that's fantastic. I'll maybe spend a couple minutes on those as well. Okay, just looking at some of the pre-loaded questions I had here. Staff members and tracking time, something that comes up quite a bit. And I did mention that staff can track time in different ways if they would like. Here in my test system, logged in as myself, I am tracking time by duration. Doing so, the common routine would be to put in number of hours you worked on, choose a task or choose a job to track the time against. Wherever you see the little timer icon means you will be able to track time. So I could track time to this job. A yellow field is required, so I'd want to specify what I was up to. Could put any additional info here. Oh, can't spell today. And then submit to start tracking time. But people can use a start and stop clock if they prefer. They can also use, there is a clock option here in the duration view. The only issue with that, hitting start, it does start the clock going. But if I navigate away, if I navigate to another part of the system, I do lose my clock. What I'd recommend people to do, if they do want to use the start and stop clock here by duration, there's a little timesheet window you can use that pops the clock up into a little separate window that you can have started, you can minimize, you can navigate wherever you like in function point, and it keeps going. Okay, list maintenance we took a look at. Job numbers, can they have letters in them? They cannot, I'm afraid. Can the invoice number be different from the job number? That's something that gets asked quite often, and yes, it can. Back in system setup, where we began, system preferences, we hadn't looked at a tab called invoice. And on the invoice tab down towards the bottom, you can decide if the invoice number and the job number should be connected or be completely separated. Okay, I'm just going to take a look at some of the questions that came in during the session, just see if there's something that's good to share with the rest of the class here. Can the 4-digit job number start with 0? Yes, I believe it can. Oh, actually, I'm getting the big X. It cannot. So great question. Glad it came up. And glad that I learned something new today. So that system tab with the job number, if I did try to make it a number that began with 0, well, for some reason it did it, but I know the system isn't going to like it in the back end, so that was a bad example to show. My apologies. Bottom line answer is, I'm sorry, no, that the job number cannot start with a 0. Another question, can you guys have different rate structures? Yeah, you can have 2 rate structures in Function Point and as many rate cards as you would like. Absolutely. In regards to briefs, can you use briefs if you do not use the client portal? Again, absolutely great question. I do find that briefs get used a little more heavily by those clients who have signed up to use portal, but not exclusively, no. Just here from my dashboard, if I wanted to add a brief to the system based on a conversation I had with a client or based on a meeting I had with a client because I was going to be building out an estimate for them, hovering over, I can choose to add a brief to the system. It'll bring me to a brief add page. I'll have some yellow fields that are required, and I can pick from among the brief types that I've got built into the back end. Then we would fill in the answers, and that brief would be saved into the system. So yeah, they can absolutely be used. And that's the client I referred to who's using one at sort of the beginning, middle, and end of the jobs with their clients. They aren't portal users, and they're finding a lot of success with using briefs in the system in that way. Excellent. Well, I don't see any new questions popping up right now, and I've gone through the ones that I had noted to myself that do come up quite often. If there's anything else, we can certainly wait a minute or so here just to see if new questions come in. But a lot of what we went over today was just meant to be an introduction to the whole admin area of the system. This is not meant to be detailed information. And again, a lot of the information here will be gone over in a little more detail with your trainer in a one-on-one session, especially stuff surrounding rates, accounting, things of that nature. We do also have a lot, if not, I'd say probably all of this information written up in the training section of the system. And we really just want to introduce you to what's back here, what the potential is, what can be changed, and what common things we see get adjusted in the back end of the system. Do be encouraged to explore it. You're not going to break anything. You're not going to hurt anything. So click around, come to us with questions, or search for those answers. Even better, search for those answers in our help section. Excellent. Well, I think I'll let everybody get back to work. I don't see new questions coming in. Again, we do this webinar every Thursday, so feel free to join in again next week by all means. And on Tuesdays, we do a session regarding the data import workbook. So if you haven't imported your data with us as yet, that is definitely one to sit in on. Really, thanks to everyone for coming today. Feedback very encouraged. This is a fairly new thing that we've been offering as far as these webinars go, and I'd love to know if I talk too fast, talk too slow, need to go over information that's totally different, if there's subject matter you'd like to see offered in a webinar other than the workbook in this admin area. Excellent. Well, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. It is, of course, raining here in Vancouver, and hope everyone else is seeing some sunshine. And we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks so much, everyone.